Hello and welcome to the first video in a series of 5 looking at trigonometry. So the first question, what is it? Well, it's a branch of maths that helps us find missing sides or angles in a right angled triangle. Okay, it uses the fact the ratio of sides in similar triangles are the same. Let's see if we can make that a bit clearer with a diagram. There is a right angled triangle, and when I drew that to be 6 centimetres, that to be 3 centimetres. So let's look at the ratio of the horizontal, the flat one, to the vertical, the going up one. Well, that's 6 to 3, and we can cancel that down 2 to 1. Okay, now let's draw a similar triangle, which means an enlargement of that one that we've just done. So there it is, that's a bigger version, and the length across the bottom was 10, length going up was 5. What's the ratio of horizontal to vertical? 10 to 5, or 2 to 1. Now let's draw another similar triangle. This one's bigger again. And there it is, bigger version of the first and second ones. That distance I measured to be 14, and that was 7. So we see the ratio is 2 to 1. So what we're saying, the angles don't change. Similar triangles, angles don't change. The lengths change, but the ratio of lengths doesn't change. Okay, so in this particular example, however large we draw the triangle, the horizontal length is always twice the vertical length. Don't get too worked up if that's a little bit fuzzy. Once you start doing some stuff with trigonometry, this will all fall into place. But that's an introduction about what it all does and where it all comes from. Now, it's really important we're able to name the sides. And we need to know the names of the 3 sides. So it must be a right angled triangle, and the name depend on which angle we're using. So let's go from this angle down here. Now this is the adjacent, okay, the adjacent side, because adjacent just means next to. Okay, now this side here is the opposite, because it's opposite the angle. Okay, so far. And this one, the right angle, points towards it, that's the hypotenuse. Now the hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle, and it's always the longest side. And if you've had a look at the Pythagoras video, you'll remember which one's the hypotenuse, and it's the same thing here. The right angle points to the hypotenuse. Okay, so now what if we look from this angle up here then? Alright, now this time, that's the adjacent. Adjacent means next to. This one here is opposite the angle, so it's called the opposite. And so they've swapped round, but this one is the same, and that's the hypotenuse. It's always the longest side, it's always opposite the right angle. So what you've got to do now is press pause and identify the names of the sides from the angle shown, and then when you want your answers, press play again. Okay, so press pause and have a go. Okay then, let's have a look at the first triangle. Well, there they are. We've got the hypotenuse opposite the right angle, the adjacent is next to the angle that's been coloured in, and then the opposite is opposite the angle. Let's have a look at the top right one. There's the hypotenuse, there's the adjacent, there's the opposite. Bottom left, there they are, and the bottom right. Now if you haven't got those right, go back and make sure you understand the names of the sides, because that is really fundamental to being able to do questions with trigonometry. Okay, and if you've got them all right, well done. Let's move on. Now what we're going to deal with are 3 trigonometrical, or trig for short, ratios. And that sounds a bit horrible. And then we've got 3 of them. We've got sine, which is written S-I-N. People pronounce it sin, but is that actually, we pronounce that sine. Cosine, or cos for short, and tangent, or tan for short. So we've got sine, cos, and tan. And it sounds dreadful, doesn't it? It doesn't really help us understand what it's all about. Now, those are just names thought up by someone a long time ago. They sound confusing, but all they are numbers which we get by doing this. Now, the sine of an angle, you get that by dividing the opposite side by the hypotenuse. The cosine, you get the adjacent side divided by hypotenuse, and the tangent, the opposite divided by adjacent. Sounds awfully confusing. Bear with it. Once you start doing some questions, this will all fall into place. So let's have a look at this triangle here. Now, we're going to go from this angle, so we're going to call that angle A, and we name the sides. The adjacent is the next side to it, the opposite is the one that's opposite the angle, and the hypotenuse is opposite the right angle. Now, I don't know if you remember, but sine, someone just made up a definition that the sine is opposite divided by the hypotenuse. So the sine of angle A is the length of the opposite divided by the length of the hypotenuse. Oh, let's have a look. What are those then? Well, the opposite is 3, the hypotenuse is 5. So the sine of angle A is 3/5. Okay. Now we can use this in calculations to find out the angle, or if we know the angle, we can use it to find out lengths of sides, and it's used extensively. Note that sine, cos and tan have no units, they're just numbers. Okay. So let's have a look at cosine or cos. Now I don't know if you remember it, but cos is defined to be the adjacent divided by the hypotenuse. Okay, so in this one the adjacent is 4 centimeters divided by the hypotenuse, which is 5. So cos A is 4/5. And remember, sine, cos and tan, no units, they're just numbers. Now the other one we had, can you remember what it's called? Sine, cos and tan, that's it. Now I don't know if you remember the definition, quite possibly not. It is opposite divided by adjacent. And the opposite is 3 and the adjacent is 4. So tan of angle A is 3/4. There we go. We like to impress that. There are no units, just numbers. Now what if we went from this angle here? Let's call that one angle B. And so we've got the adjacent, the opposite, and then the hypotenuse. Okay. Now sine of angle B, can you remember what sine was? It was opposite divided by hypotenuse. So the opposite this time is 4, and so sine B is 4/5. Oh, there's that thing again. What about cosine? Cos. Cos B, remember what cos was? It's adjacent divided by hypotenuse. So in this one, it's 3 divided by 5. Okay, cos B is 3/5. Oh, there's that thing again. And the last one, tan. Can you remember what tan was? Tan is opposite divided by adjacent. And so for angle B, the opposite is 4, the adjacent is 3, so tan B is 4/3. And we're going to get that little red and green message, aren't we? Ah, go away. So let's have a look. Let's see if we can remember them. There's our triangle with angle A at the top. Sine A, cos A, tan A. Now sine, and remember it's just a definition, someone made it up, is the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. So that is 3/5. Cos was the adjacent divided by the hypotenuse. And that's 4/5. And tan is opposite over adjacent, which is 3/4. Now let's see if you can have a go working out sine B, cos B and tan B for that triangle down there. So what you're going to do is press pause, write them down, and see. When you want to check your answers, press play. Okay, so let's have a look how we got on. Sine B, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so that means that sine B must be 4/5. Cos is adjacent divided by hypotenuse, so in this case that's 3/5. And tan B is opposite over adjacent, and that is 4/3. Okay, so that's how we identify the sides and we use those trig ratios. Now the trouble is, it's quite a lot to remember, isn't it? How can you remember that opposite over hypotenuse stuff? Well, there's a very famous memory aid. Look at this. Sine is opposite divided by hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent divided by hypotenuse. Tangent. Oh, let's take the first letter of everything there then. And let's get rid of everything else. And we've got SOH, CAH, TOA, SOHCAHTOA. There we go, and that's our memory aid. And you can use words to help you remember that. If you look online, you'll find loads of different words you can put in for SOH. I always remembered it by SOHCAHTOA. So let's have a look. What does SOHCAHTOA mean? For an angle X, SOH means sine, it's opposite over hypotenuse. Cos, A over H. Oh, there we go. Cos is A for adjacent divided by H for hypotenuse. And tan is O for opposite divided by A for adjacent. SOHCAHTOA. So there we go. What you've got to do now is go and do the first exercise, which is all about identifying which trig ratio you would use. And once you've done that, we can go on to do some numerical questions. Bye for now.